We're going to take a look now at how to use the Pentax KM's features, how they work in concert, and how they can be used to improve and facilitate your photography. So first thing we're going to have to do is mount a lens. Take that cover off. And this is the 1:2 50mm Pentax M kit lens. The Pentax M lenses are really, really high-end, very nice lenses. Well, they were high-end in their day. They're very nice lenses still. They take excellent pictures on film or digital. So here we have this. Now, next thing we need to do is load film. So we're going to open up the back and take some film, drop it in there, and let's come around here like this. Next we're going to take the film, pull out a leader, and there is a little slit in the film take-up spool. And let's see, yeah, I think you can kind of see that. We're going to take the front of the leader where it's cut and put it into the, so we're going to put it into, there it goes. We're going to put it into the film take-up spool. Now we're going to advance the film. And as you can see here, the sprocket has lined up with the perforations for the film registration. Advance it again. That guarantees that this is really held in place well. Okay. And what you can see now, this is basically how the film will progress as you take the roll. And I don't feel bad about wasting this. I don't consider this a waste because I've developed 2 rolls of this. It was stored in some lady's garage for 15 or 20 years before I got it, and that's not ideal film storage conditions, and it did not hold up really all that well. So what happens as you take a roll of film? You take a picture like that, you advance the film, and what you can see happening is that the film advances. The film guide rails keep the film in place, and the film rails here help keep the film flat. If this back were shut, this film pressure plate right here would keep this flat like that. And you need a flat surface in order to have a nice focus on your image. So keep taking the pictures, and what happens is some of you might have noticed already, is that the film is being taken up on here. As it gets taken up on here, the diameter of the spool is increasing. So these cameras are geared so that in order to maintain a 2mm space between each frame, the take-up speed on the spool is adjusted throughout the course of the roll. So if you ever really want to screw up your roll and get some overlapping images or close to overlapping images, take about 24, 25 shots on a 36 count roll. Take this into a dark room like a bathroom. Open up the back to reset the counter, keeping it in the darkness so you don't screw up all of your images. Shut it again, and then go and take the rest of the pictures, and what you'll find is that your pictures aren't lining up in the same way that they were on the front of the roll, because your camera thinks that it's a different diameter because the counter will be earlier in the roll. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is take a look at how to do a double exposure. The KM and the K1000 can do a double exposure in the same manner. Push down the film release button, as we looked at the functioning a moment ago. Take a picture, and let's try that again. Hold down the film release button, take a picture. It's not supposed to be advancing like that. I don't think I'm holding it down well enough. Anyway, the way that it works is that you hold down the film release button, take the picture, advance the shutter, and then the film's not supposed to advance any. I'm not holding this down well enough. Let's try it again. Ow. Ow. Anyway, so the theory is you hold down the film release button, advance the lever, and there we go, like that. And then the film plane doesn't advance, so you take your double exposure. Then after you've done your double or triple or however many exposures, you need to put the lens cap back on and take a dummy shot, because as you might have noticed, the film, it takes a minute, takes partial advance for the sprocket to re-engage, and so you will need to have that blank exposure between your double exposure and the next frame in order to make sure that you don't overlap images. And then you can just go back to your normal regular shooting. So let's rewind this film now. You can see as we rewind how that's going. And some of my cameras, I just have to push the release button down. Some of my K cameras, I have to hold it down. And I don't know if there's a rhyme or a reason why that is, but it is. Here we go. Lift up the film release knob, remove the cartridge, and that one's ready to go off to be developed. Not that one, actually, it's all ruined. It was exposed to the light, but you know what I mean. Your film will now be ready to go. Back here with KM, and what we're going to do is take a look at how to change the battery first. I've got my quarter here, and we're going to unscrew the battery cover. Now these batteries, it uses an LR44 battery, which is a 1.5 volt battery, and they last a really, really long time. Anytime you put your camera into storage, you should take the battery out of it. I one time put my K1000 in storage for about 8 years, and I took the battery out, and luckily it had not exploded in the camera. Amazingly, it had 5 shots left on it before the battery died. So anytime you touch the top or bottom of the battery, you want to clean it off because it's sensitive to the acid in your skin. Oops. Now the next thing to do is to load it. You can either drop it in with the unmarked side down, like this. And you know, it was funny when I did the practice take, it took me 5 tries to do that. And I thought, oh, that'll be really funny if that happens again in the video. And then it just doesn't. It doesn't happen at all. Anyway, the battery cover has a plus marked on it. And that means that the battery cover is supposed to face the plus side, which is the marked side of the battery. And that's the positive terminal. And then it just screws in like this. It should screw in really easily. If it doesn't screw in easily, back off and unscrew the cover, because you do not want to cross-thread this. That will make it very, very difficult to get your battery back out again. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is, in just a second, we're going to take a look at how the depth of field and self-release timer work, so that you can use those when you go to take pictures. Okay, so before we get to the depth of field and timer preview, take a look at that. This is what it looks like through the Pentax KM's viewfinder. That's your light meter, and that's telling you it's overexposed. If the needle were down there, it would mean it was underexposed. So I'm going to adjust the aperture, and you can see as I adjust the aperture that the needle is moving as I'm tightening the aperture. You can also achieve this by adjusting the shutter speed. And what I'm doing in reverse is I'm slowing the shutter speed down to allow more light for the final exposure, which means I've got to compensate by giving myself a deeper depth of field. Just like that. Depth of field preview button, oh, that goes dark because I'm cutting out almost all of the light since I'm pretty well stopped down to achieve this. And you can see now I'm starting to get close to I'm now underexposing the image. So the goal when you expose an image is to have the needle darn near in the middle, like that, and that's going to be a pretty well exposed image. So that's how the light meter on the KM and the K1000 and the Spotmatics works. Now, for the self-timer, what you would want to do for the self-timer is set this up someplace where it's not going to move, on top of a brick wall, not a brick wall on a windy day, or a tripod preferably. And then you set the self-timer, crank it down as far as you want it to go, and tell everyone to say cheese. Run around the tripod, not tripping on it and knocking your camera over, not tripping on anything else, and then get into the image. You say cheese, smile, it takes the picture, and there you go. So the depth of field preview, what it does is it stops down the lens. Let's take a look at that from the front of the lens and see if we can do this. Here we go. So right now the lens is at f22, I think. You can see as I stop it down, it's shutting down to the aperture that it's set at. And what that allows you to do is see approximately what your depth of field will be on the finished image. And that's useful so that you can compose things. If you want to have a lot of things in your image from right in front of the camera to far away, like for instance, this video is being shot with a ton of light in my studio, kitchen counter at f/22 on a 28mm lens. So you can see that I have a pretty good depth of field, which is everything I need it to be for this video's purposes. In fact, if I cranked the tripod all the way up, I'd have even more depth of field. It's pretty nice. But at any rate, more depth of field means you get more things in focus from front to back. It also means you need a longer exposure, and the depth of field preview helps you with your composition to determine whether or not you're achieving a good composition with the depth of field you want. The K1000 doesn't have that. The video for that shows a backdoor trick on how to achieve a depth of field preview, but it's risky and can break the camera lens if you don't do it properly. So I don't really recommend it. The KM is really nice because you can do the depth of field preview. That really is an overview of the KM. There's not a whole lot else. It's a pretty simple camera, a very, very, very good camera if you're learning 35mm film photography. This and the K1000 are two of the best learning cameras available. 6 one way, half dozen the other, for which is better. You can usually find these fairly inexpensively because they're sort of like the red-headed stepchild of the K line, because not many people know about them. Everyone's heard of the K1000. The KX is a very well-respected camera, and the K2 is the top of the line, so they're very sought after. KM's kind of an unknown, and it's a very, very good camera. So feel free to leave me any comments or questions, things that I was not clear about, or that you would like to see in future videos, and I will be more than happy to accommodate and respond to your questions pretty quickly. I'm pretty good about that. Also, subscribe to my channel, click like on this video if you found it useful, and if you subscribe, you'll get to know when I do more videos in this vein, and more photography videos in general about things like developing film and any of the other 55 things I have written down to make videos about in the coming year or so. And thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope that you learned a lot and found it useful.